This is the last message of our sermon series, Stepping Forward. Over the last several weeks, we've been looking at our moving God, that God is always moving, always at work. The next week, we looked at our speaking God, that God is always speaking, always finding ways to communicate with us. The next time was our relational God, that God's relationship with us is as sons and daughters. That's the basis of how he regards us, how he treats us, and how we can relate to him. And then our equipping God, that God has uniquely equipped each one of us to dispense his grace in our world. And through all of this, the question for each of us in each message has been, are we willing? Are we willing to follow after God? Are we willing to listen to God speak? Are we willing to see ourselves as a son or a daughter and to see others that way? Are we willing to use our talents and abilities to serve God, or do we just keep them to ourselves? Because if we're willing, then we're going to step forward, and we're going to discover the incredible life that God has in store for us. Well, our last message of this series is our community God. God has designed us to live in spiritual community. We grow best in our spiritual lives when we commit ourselves to a church family, and a church family grows best when everyone commits to it. This is more than just being friendly and welcoming with each other. This is deep authenticity, real and vulnerable relationships where we truly know each other and are truly known. It's an ironic message, considering that right now we are completely unable to gather together publicly. But just because we can't physically be together doesn't mean that we cannot continue to live in spiritual community. It'll just be different, and it'll take a lot more effort. Sometimes it seems easier to just be alone and not develop relationships with others. After all, relationships involve risk. Someone could get angry or frustrated at you. Maybe they'll see your true self and won't like it. Someone might break your heart. Someone might be mean or manipulative to you. Someone might take advantage of you. In today's world, we often feel that we should close ourselves off. We put up barriers to keep people from seeing who we really are. We're cautious and we're guarded. After all, authentic relationships are just too risky. But there's a problem with closing ourselves to others. We know that people who live isolated lives lose perspective on life. They develop a fear of intimacy. They often become self-centered or mistrusting or self-indulging. They only see the world through their eyes and senses. Well, why is this? Well, I think it's because God did not make us to live life alone. He created us for relationship. Even in the beginning of the Bible, after God had created the world with all of its plants and animals and galaxies and oceans, seasons and everything else, he said that it was not good for man to be alone and created a partner for him. God himself recognizes that humanity needs relationships. We need partnerships. We need each other. And one of the greatest goals of the Christian life is to nurture these relationships. I believe there's two things we need to understand to fully know why God created us for community. The first is to know the value we carry as God's creation. The Bible says that God created us out of the full expression of himself. We are created in the image of God. We're not accidents. We didn't come about by chance. Each one of us was created by God, and before we were even born, God had mapped out a plan and purpose for our lives. If you're curious what God thinks about you, look up Psalm 139. And when we have responded to God's invitation to have a relationship with us, the Bible says that he adopts us as his sons and daughters. We're no longer living as slaves to sin, but we are now living as children of God. God places an incredible value on us. And when we understand that value and we begin to live into that value, we can't help but place value on everyone around us. When we value people and we see them the way that God sees them, we nurture relationships with them. And then, of course, the more we nurture relationships with people, the more we value them. It's a beautiful circle. The second thing to know is that you have purpose as God's creation. And the purpose God gave you is best lived out within a church body. There are many metaphors the Bible uses to describe the church. That it's like a building with each person a stone fitted perfectly together. That it's like a body with each person performing a vital function. That it's like a family or a household with all of us working together as sons and daughters. And all of these metaphors and all of the teachings of the Bible have the same common theme: living out our purpose together. God has given us all skills and abilities. God has made us all unique, and the best way to live that out is with other believers who are on their journeys. It's like a puzzle with all the pieces fitted together. Every person carrying out their significant sense of purpose. That's what it means to be the church, and that's what it means to live in community. I think that at the end of this coronavirus outbreaks, whenever that will be, we won't take for granted the opportunity to be together. Every kind of contact, from shaking someone's hand to giving someone a hug, will be so much more meaningful. It'll be so special to share a meal with friends and family, or to go to a movie theater, or to watch a hockey game at an arena. The longing you feel inside to do these things, to connect with people, has been placed there by God. The longing you feel where you wish that someone knew the real you, with all its goodness and all its brokenness, that's been placed there by God. We were created that way, and we grow in our faith best when we nurture these relationships. God bless you this week. Find ways to connect with others. Text them, phone them. We need each other, and we need to know that we're cared for. Have an awesome week.